and welcome to card 2. So I started off with the roll of Eclipse masking tape and this little gnome image by Mashy's Muffins. It's a new line that CC Designs is manufacturing. So I'd stamped the gnome onto CC Designs white cardstock with Memento ink, and then I stamped it again onto the Eclipse masking tape. Think of it as kind of like a sticky note, but it's thinner and it's sticky all over. So I'd stamped it the second time, trimmed it out, and masked the image. And mask the little fish that's on it as well. So once I've got that covered, I die cut 2 clouds using the CC Designs cloud die, just using the smaller cloud of the 2, and cut 2 masks again with that, and then laid those over top. And then I actually pulled out my little Copic airbrush. This is a little starter kit you can get. And again, the link will be with the supplies for this. I thought I would airbrush a background and airbrush some clouds. So super simple, you just screw the can onto the airbrush and then make sure it's working, which it is. And then I'm using a sketch marker here, and this one is BG72. And then you just stick it in so that the chisel point is facing up. And then I just grabbed a scrap piece of cardstock to make sure, everything's spraying evenly before I spray it onto my cardstock. So it's spraying great, so it's working fine. So then it's just a matter of spraying the cardstock. So you just go use slow, small bursts with it. It's really simple to use. I used my Tim Holtz crafting mat underneath just to kind of protect my surface so I don't get Copic marker all over everything. And FYI, the longer you do this for, the colder it's going to get. Because it's compressed air, it gets cold. So you can literally freeze your hand if you're not careful. So that's why you kind of do small sections, small areas, and only do a bit at a time. I pulled up the one mask and then moved it so I can get another cloud. And then I just kept lightly airbrushing around them. You can use different colors. You can go darker. You could add more colors if you want to, but I was just keeping it simple. I don't do a whole lot of airbrushing. I usually find it quite time consuming, but pulling it out again, now that once you start doing it, it's kind of addictive and you want to do it some more. So got everything airbrushed that I wanted to, pulled the marker off, and then I'm just showing you here. It's kind of hard to focus, but you can see the tip, the metal tip there on the airbrush is turning white because it's literally frozen. So that's where you've got to be careful with this. You can end up freezing the nibs on your markers, and yeah, it's a fun thing to play with, but you can go overboard and do some damage. So just a little FYI there. But yeah, once I've got it airbrushed, I'm going to pull off the masks, and once I pull them off, you can see the great little background it created. So really fun. So got my background done, and now it's time to go on and color the actual image. So I started, as always, with his skin, and I'm using E50 as my base. And then I'm going to go in with E01 to darken it up a little bit. So again, not being super particular and super careful with it because all the other surrounding areas that get colored are going to blend everything out. So then I went in with my E13, just very, very lightly added the darkest areas. And then I'm going to blend that out again with the E01. And the other thing I'm going to be careful about this time with coloring the image is I don't want to go outside the lines too far since I've already done my background. I just wanted to do the background first to make sure everything worked since it's been so long since I've airbrushed. I wanted to make sure that worked before coloring my image and then wrecking it if if that happens. But it didn't. So yeah, once I got the skin colored and blended, use a little R20 for his cheeks and the tip of his nose, and then for his little beard and bushy eyebrows, I'm using W1, W3, and W5. Honestly, I just get a kick out of this image. I had to use it for a Father's Day card. I just think it's funny. So just for kind of more of a cute, whimsical sort of Father's Day card. And then for his eyes, I'm just using E15 and color those in, and it just didn't look fully right. So I just actually went and took a fine tip black marker. It doesn't matter what kind of marker because I'm not going to color over it or blend or anything, but just use that to create kind of little pupils of his eyes. And that really just kind of finished it off. So then for his little outfit, I'm just using E11 and then E13 and E15. Starting lightest to darkest and then working my way back to blend everything together. So super, super simple. Get it all blended. Once that's done, I'm using YG03 and just kind of pushing the brown back out that went over the lines and laying down the color for his little boots and the belt. And then YG25 as my darker color. Once that's there, just blend it back out with the YG03. And then for his hat, I'm using R24. And again, trying to be really careful because the red's a powerful color. It's really heavily pigmented, and with the mushroom, I had more trouble trying to keep it in the lines and not smearing. Like, you have to be careful with red. It doesn't even matter if it's Copics or regular markers or anything. Red ink just wants to go everywhere. It's kind of a pain in the butt to work with. But yeah, I used the reds, and then I used my W1 and W00 and the 0 for the spots on the mushroom, and that's where I used the 0 especially to really gently kind of push the red back in deeper into the cardstock so it didn't smear as much. And then once that's done, just the stem of the mushroom, and I just used W1, pulling it down, and then blended it a little bit with the W00, and that was it. The little fish and the fishing rod, I ended up coloring, like, I wasn't even on camera, so I just edited those parts out, but nothing special. I just kind of dabbed some of the green and blue onto it, and that's it. So, very simple. I'm using Echo Parks for the record pattern paper for this card. I don't even know if you can get it anywhere. I know I've shown it in other videos because I just love these papers, but yeah, I had them sitting there, had to use them. I don't know if you can get them. For the green pattern paper, I just used my Martha Stewart Grass Edger punch, and there's tons of Grass Edger dies too. If you can't find the punch, there's lots of companies make little Grass Edger dies and that. So I ended up doing 2 pieces for that, and then just adhering them over top of the bottom of the image. So that did that, and then I die cut 2 more clouds with the cloud die and just some white cardstock. And then I grabbed this sentiment from my All About Dad sentiment set and inked it up with VersaFine Onyx Black, and then just eyeballed it and stamped it onto the smaller of the 2 clouds. I made sure before doing that it would actually fit on there, which it did. And then just adhered the larger cloud and the smaller cloud onto the card front. I didn't bother using dimensionals or anything. This is another one of those cards that it's kept pretty flat, so it's easy for mailing. You're not going to have to pay a whole bunch of extra postage if you wanted to mail this card. Yeah, I'm all of a sudden on a kind of a no embellishment kick the past couple days, but you know how long that's going to last. It's only a matter of time before I start glittering things up. So, yeah. Finished that was the card front, adhered it to some Stampin' Up! Lucky Limeade cardstock. And then the inside of the card, I used a larger piece of pattern paper. I cut another piece of the green pattern paper and used the Grass Edger punch on it. And then I'm just using my stamp positioner and the Happy Father's Day stamp from the All About Dad stamp set, so I can line it up on the green piece of pattern paper. So once I've got that lined up how I want it, I'm going to stamp that onto there, and that's all there was to it. So for the inside of the card, it was just a piece of white cardstock to write a message on. It doesn't matter that if it fits perfectly within that black mat there, you can see it hangs over. That doesn't matter because it's going to get covered up by the green pattern paper. So just adhere that to the red pattern paper and adhere the green over it, and then that's going to go on the inside of the card, and it's all finished. So as always, there'll be a link to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!